inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Before the internet, I think it was really difficult to be an out-of-town real estate investor. But today the world's gotten a lot smaller, and I think it makes a lot of sense to live where you want to live and to invest where the numbers make sense. And that's exactly what my guest today is doing. She lives in Seattle, but she has her rentals in New York. And the amazing thing is she's been able to find these properties, get them rented, and do the day-to-day management from across the country. So I want to hear exactly how she's doing this. She's got a great story, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So let's take a real quick break. We'll get a word in from our sponsor. We'll come back in 30 seconds, and we'll meet Kathy Proff.
Are you looking for a roadmap to financial freedom? If so, we have a solution for you. Norada Real Estate is offering a limited number of free strategy sessions to help you get out of the rat race. Learn how you can create wealth and build monthly passive income. To set up a time with one of our knowledgeable investment counselors, simply go to noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
Kathy, I'm excited to hear your story. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Glad to be here.
So tell me, how did you first get interested in owning rental properties?
Well, the first time I ever heard about rental properties was in chemistry class in high school many, many years ago. My chemistry teacher would buy these little houses in the summer, fix them up, and then he'd use them as rentals. And I remember even as a teenager thinking that was just the coolest thing, because I've always been an entrepreneur. So had no idea I would get into real estate. My parents they owned 2 houses in their entire life. But fast forward, here I am. It looked like a great opportunity, and I really do love looking at real estate. I just don't ever seem to get tired of it.
So tell me, when you decided that it was time you were going to buy an investment property, how did you learn how to do it? Like what kind of steps did you take to figure out what you had to learn?
Well, my husband and I had both bought our own little first time, fixer FHA, hold your hand type things. Mm-hmm. But when we actually got interested in rental real estate in a serious way, I came across a book called Nothing Down by Robert G. Allen. And I probably bought it at a garage sale, knowing me. And I literally read that book probably 3-4 times. Went out, bought a little HP calculator, did everything that Robert told me to do. And he would tell you to go out and find people that didn't want their property. And then to find, and to buy it under value and then refinance out of it. Well, the refinance part by then had changed. So you can't take anything that's in a book at face value. Mm-hmm. But the concept was right. And then in the year 2000, I went to a seminar that was a big seminar that was given in downtown Seattle that brought in a bunch of different speakers. And that sort of piqued my interest. And it was a good time for me. So we already owned some rental property, but to actually avidly become a full-time real estate investor, that happened probably about 2001. And at that point in time, to be honest with you, I became what I call a seminar junkie. I wouldn't plug the seminars, but I still believe that that the book that Robert wrote many, many years ago, he's updated to Nothing Down for the 2000s. I still think that is probably the best basic overall, will explain what cap rates are and gross rent multipliers and how to figure things and how to write a contract, all that kind of stuff. I still think it's the best nuts and bolts book out there. And I know you can pick it up for, maybe $1 on Amazon. Right.
When you decided that you were going to invest out of state, how did that come about? Like, why not buy rentals closer to where you live?
Well, it was all about cash flow, and that's what my husband and I were looking for, was cash flow.
Okay.
So we had done a couple of rehabs of a couple of 8 units down in the Tacoma area, and just sort of didn't want to be in that area. And what happened with me was I was on the internet one night. I was just surfing eBay to see what properties were out there, and I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio. So I went on to see what was selling in Ohio, and I found a house that was $3,500 was the going bid. And I went, there's no way, not even in Youngstown. And so I followed it, and it closed at $9,500. And I was just blown away. So then the next time we went on, I just sorted by price for all the United States. And Youngstown, Buffalo, Detroit, and Baltimore at the time blew up the map.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a little 3-3 double, that's an upstairs, downstairs duplex in Buffalo, and it was listed by an agent. So I called him up and I said, would you be willing to take that off the market if I made you an offer? And he said he would. So I made him, so I offered him $9,500. He said he talked to the lady, and she came back and said she'd take it. And I was shocked. Now, he had told me it wasn't in a good area, but I didn't care. It was a 3-3 double with a brand new double car garage and brand new driveway. And I thought, how bad can the area be?
Right.
And so then I flew back to Buffalo and I found out how bad the area could be.
Was it pretty bad?
Yeah, there was only one house on the entire block that wasn't boarded up, and that was definitely the drug lord house. And
wow.
There were 3 big dudes sitting on the front lawn that looked like they could blow you away. And I said, I don't think I'm going to keep this one. I put it back online with pictures and full disclosures that it was in a bad area, just like I'd bought it. And sure enough, somebody else bought it from me. And
okay. Wow.
But that's how I got started in Buffalo. And if you're going to invest out of, again, I'd gone to a seminar, and one of the seminar guys said that you should look into investing outside your geographical area. If you're going to do something like that, make sure it's an area that's easy to get to, a place that you want to go to that has nice people, where you can actually make money. There's a lot of other areas, and that gap, that was sort of a hole at the time. I'm sure there are still places out there where you can find those deals. I certainly would not recommend going to Detroit. Detroit has been more than overrun with investors for years. But I know there's other locales where you can do the same type of thing. You're not going to get the killer screaming deals I did back in 2004. Right. I mean, I could buy properties back then for $10,000 and $15,000, put another $10,000 to $15,000 into them, and have a positive cash flow of $700 a month. So that but I just went back and I would go up and down the street like the candy man. I'd have a whole stack of papers, and I'd just write numbers on them. And then my agent would go back and call the other agents and say, I've got a buyer who's interested in paying this much. And if they gave us a counter, then we'd actually go out and look at it. I didn't spend my time going in and out of these houses.
Okay, so your very first step was that you found a really good realtor to help you, right?
Yes, I did, to buy them. Mm-hmm.
And so you have 18 properties up there. In what period of time did you, over how long of a period did you buy those properties?
Oh, my. I probably bought them all within a 2-year period, but I had way more, and I don't have 18 properties. I have 18 doors.
Okay.
So I've got some single families, some duplexes or doubles, and a couple of triplexes.
Okay.
But I did have as much as an 18 unit out in Niagara Falls at one point in time.
Okay.
So yeah, we bought an enormous amount of. We were flush with cash at the time because I had just sold 2 8 units out here on the West Coast, and so I'm taking what I thought. And to be honest with you, I hired a management company that I thought was acting in my best interest, and she was sending people out to fix these, and then she was going to rent them. And at the end of the day, she stole over $100,000 from me.
Oh my God!
You definitely want to make sure that you steer the boat and don't delegate that to somebody else, especially somebody else that's maybe either not a partner. My husband was working with me full time at the time, but we were so busy, we were so fast and furious that we just lost track of the money because we thought she was tracking the money. And then when we finally sat down and sorted through everything, we found out that we'd been swindled big time. So
there's probably a good learning experience there. So looking back on it, was there
very expensive seminar.
right. Looking back on it, was there anything that you should have noticed about the property manager?
It was a really good scam she had going on.
Wow.
She was the head of one of the local neighborhood associations back there, trying to rehabilitate the city, blah, blah, blah. Very well known, had been quite a public advocate. I mean, she came with great credentials. Sad thing is that people that I was wholesaling houses to, I sent them to her to manage their properties and fix their properties, and they were swindled as well. But it was more when we started noticing that she was supposed to get these places fixed and rented, and they weren't getting fixed and they weren't getting rented, and the renters that she was putting in there weren't good renters. And that's really the name of the game. If you're going to make money in rentals, you've got to have good tenants.
Right.
If they don't pay you on time or take care of your property, you're going to have to go in and rehab it all as soon as they leave.
Yep.
They'll just destroy it after you pay you pay an attorney to do an eviction on them. So that's just critical.
Was she telling you that the places were being fixed up and then billing you for it, but then she wasn't really doing it?
She was actually creating invoices.
Oh,
We found that she actually had a book from a local heating company, and when we had I think it was either a water heater or a furnace that had been supposedly installed by this company. My husband called them up to find out something about it, and they said they had no idea what he was talking about. They had no record of doing the job there. So obviously that was a huge red flag.
Yep.
But that came way, way, way down the line, or we wouldn't have lost that much money.
Was she also?
We just weren't accounting for. We weren't keeping good books.
Right.
And,
was she also not sending you rent? Like she would collect rent and not send it to you?
Oh gosh, I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember that part.
Wow.
But it was more. I know the 18 unit that she was supposed to be rehabbing. It wasn't getting rehabbed. We weren't getting tenants in there. She wasn't doing.
Yeah.
We were doing so many. I mean, I had an 18 unit. I had 3-4 units that she was doing. I had a couple duplexes. I had her so flush with business, she didn't know what to do with all of it. And I think she got overwhelmed too.
Coming up on the Rental Income Podcast.
I definitely see Kathy's motivation for wanting to self-manage. I think if I had a property manager steal $100,000 from me, I would probably feel the exact same way. But the reality is there's certain things where someone needs to be on site for it, like when you have a showing or an inspection or a turnover and you need to see if there's any damage to the property. So I want to see how she makes that work from being so far away. But before we get into that, I want to do a quick landlord pop quiz from our friends over at rentprep.com. Here is today's question. If your rental property was built before 1978, there's a federal law that you have to provide 2 documents to your tenants before you can sign a lease. What are those documents? Well, the answer is you have to give an approved lead-based paint pamphlet, and you also have to give a lead-based paint disclosure form, and you can get in really big trouble if you don't do these 2 things. So make sure you're doing it. If you have an older rental property, I would highly suggest you go to rentprep.com/Dan. You can get these 2 forms for free. And the guys at rentprep.com have also put together a landlord care package with a bunch of other free resources that you can grab. Just go to rentprep.com/Dan. RentPrep is not only a tenant screening company, but they're also an educational resource for landlords and property managers. And when you go to rentprep.com/Dan, you can get these free forms and also a host of other resources to protect your rentals. And they'll even throw in a 20% promo code for their tenant screening packages for when you have your next vacancy. 2 things that I absolutely love about RentPrep is when you call over there, you can get an FCRA certified screener on the phone with no problem. They answer the phone right away. And the other thing is, if you have a quick question, sometimes you don't want to call. Sometimes it's just easier to chat. And they have a live chat on their website, and you can talk to an expert and find out what you need. So check out their resources and their tenant screening packages. Just go to rentprep.com/Dan. Again, that's rentprep, spelled rentprep.com/Dan. All right, let's get back to the show. So Kathy, tell me, how are you managing these properties? You're not actually getting on a plane when you need to physically be at the property, are you?
Well, one of 2 ways. First of all, we have worked really, really hard over the years to get really good tenants, and we're really picky. I'll let a property sit vacant for a month before I'll put somebody in there that I don't want to put in there. So typically, we don't have a lot of turnover, which is good. But when we do, the tenant that's living there shows the apartment, and I don't set up appointments. I don't have random showings. What I'll do is I'll ask my tenant for a space of time that might work for them on, let's say, a Saturday. And then we'll set an hour. Okay, so would you be willing to show it between 3 and 4 or 5 and 6 or, maybe after work if it's a weeknight, that type of thing. And we only set up an hour showing. Then I post that on Craigslist that there's a vacancy, I post what it is, what all the amenities are. I post really good pictures of it, and it has a big thing, open house, like we have one tonight. Open house Tuesday, 7 to 8 p.m. And so if people write to me, I tell them, if you write to me, you have to send your telephone number. If they don't send a telephone number, I just delete them. Right. If they're not smart enough to follow that basic direction, I don't want them as a tenant. But then if they write to me, then I'm polite and I write back and I say, thank you for your interest. Yes, we're showing it tonight. Please show up. You can go in the side door or the front door, whatever. Please ask for so-and-so. And that's it. And if people say, oh, I'm really sorry, I can't make it I can't make it during that time. Can I show it another time? I write back to them and say, really sorry, this is the only showing we have right now. I'll let you know if we have another one. And then if I don't find somebody the first showing, then we show it again. We keep showing it until I find somebody that I want to rent to.
Then when you find someone that's interested, you must have some kind of an online application that they fill out? Okay.
It's not online. It's just then I talk to them on the phone. I'm a real people person. I really believe in relationships. So I send them a little email and it has an application attached, and then we get the application back. We check out their references, make sure all that does. Sometimes I'm not as good as I should be, but sometimes we run a credit check on them. And then I'll issue them. Then I'll if they're approved, then I will write up the contract. And the way we get paid is I have them put the money in my bank account. We give them all our bank account information. They put their rental checks in every month. They keep the deposit slip as proof that they've made their deposit. And my husband's an accountant, so he does keep really, really clean books as far as rental deposits. And
Now, what if
that's how we do it?
What if there's some work that needs to be done? So maybe the property needs to be painted before the new tenants move in, or something needs to be fixed. How do you deal with all that? Okay.
Well, one of the things, if you're going to be an investor, is you've got to have a team. The people that you want on your team is you're going to have people that can fix your properties. So you're going to need a painter. You're going to need a plumber. You're going to need an electrician. You're going to need ideally a roofer. Handymen are absolutely worth their weight in gold if you can find a good one that'll actually show up and do what they're supposed to do and not charge you a fortune. You need a good attorney. You know, if you're not an accountant or a bookkeeper, you need somebody to keep good books.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody else on the team, but that's pretty much it. And when you have, I've got a furnace guy, and he does furnace and sewer lines and that kind of stuff for me. But
how did you build your team? You know, being so far away, how did you find out, like, say, when you're going to hire a painter, like, how did you initially?
Painfully slowly.
Okay.
Unfortunately, good help is hard to find. And when we find them, we just love on them, and we make sure they get paid. By the way, we pay most of our contractors through PayPal, using PayPal.
Okay.
That's a really easy way to transfer funds because their bank accounts don't usually match up with our bank accounts, and it takes a while to get a check back there. But sorry, what was the question?
About finding contractors and
finding them.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is we use Craigslist to source, and then if people call, then I will interview them, and I'll want some references on them.
Okay.
You've got to sort of take them with a grain of salt because, you know, they're going to give you good references. Obviously, I have somebody that has a second set of eyes on him. I've got a wonderful handyman. I call him my handyman from heaven. He's so sweet, and he shows apartments, and he just does all sorts of stuff for me. He's just the nicest guy. So I always have somebody with a second set of eyes. Or if it's a really big deal or a really big job, I'll fly back there. It's worth a few $100s to know that I'm getting that the job's being done right. I did that a few years ago when I had a house painted exterior paint job, and honestly, if I hadn't been there, this guy, he wasn't he wasn't caulking, he wasn't scraping, he wasn't prepping it properly, and I called him out on every single piece that I could find, and wow. You know, it just is what it is. Yeah. So I was really glad that I was the eyes back there for that one. But, you need a good carpet installer too.
So when they're done with the work, like, do they send you pictures to say, hey, we finished it, here it is, and you can kind of tell that everything looks like it was done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I trust. Oh, and I thought of another one, a good carpet cleaner.
Right. Right.
These are all people that we have, and a good house cleaner.
Yep.
For when people move out and they don't. Now, I will say that a lot of times what I'll do when people move out, if they haven't left it perfectly clean, I will usually offer incoming tenants an option, because I find a lot of tenants want to clean anyhow. Mm-hmm. So I will. It's less expensive and more expedient for me to say, "Wow, this isn't up to my standards," or if they move in and they say, "This is still dirty and stuff," I'll say, "Really, I am so sorry. Here's what I'd like to do. I can either send somebody over there to clean it, or if you would like to clean it yourself, I'd be more than happy to pay you $50 to do that, or you could take that off next month's rent or whatever." A lot of times people are more than happy to save the money and do the cleaning themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to spend at least that much to send a cleaning person in there to do it. They're a lot less expensive back in I'm only paying on average about $15 an hour for cleaning back there because it's still pretty cheap. But
now, how do you make sure? So say when a tenant moves out, do you have someone going over to the property to do an inspection to make sure everything's okay, or the tenant didn't do a bunch of damage when they were moving out?
Yeah. Either Jason would run over and take a look at that, or if we have a person that moves out and the new people move in, I let the new person moving in be my second set of eyes. They're the ones that are moving in. If there's damage, or if there's anything that needs repaired or taken care of, they're the ones that are probably going to be more than happy to clue me in. Right. And I've had that happen where I've gotten a whole shopping list of things. There's just there's a dent here, there's a this there. I mean, being very persnickety because they don't want to be charged for any of that when they move out. And we're pretty low key. I'm not a real nitpicky. I don't know how to describe it. Mm-hmm. I'm just pretty relational in the way that I deal with people. I'm pretty easygoing about it. Other people are a lot more structured. I guess that would be the better word. So I don't have a checklist when they move in and when they move out. Like if you're working with a rental with a management company, they're going to have all that. Right. The thing with management companies is they're going to charge you the first month's rent. So you're going to lose 1/12 of your income right there. And then they're going to usually take 10% off every month. And for a lot of people, they're lucky if they're even making a 10% return when they first get a rental property. Right. So it is a headache, but it's a business. If you're going to run rentals, remember, it's a business.
Kathy, you have a great story, and it's really inspiring to see that you can manage these properties from so far away. And, hopefully this will inspire someone to save some money and maybe not have a property manager. Kathy, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch?
The best way would probably be to email me. And a good email address would be RE, like real estate, Kathy, Kathy, 777 @gmail.com.
If you missed that, I will go ahead and put Kathy's info on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 129. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with a new episode next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.